To open the meeting, I would like to now allow time for personal reflection before we start the business of the meeting. Please be seated. The purpose of this meeting is to deal with a number of major issues for the well-being of Torbay and the best interests of the community. My role as Civic Mayor is to ensure that today's agenda is dealt with efficiently and to allow fairness throughout the discussions. As you are aware, this meeting is governed by strict procedures or standing orders. To make sure that the meeting is run fairly, I expect healthy discussion and respectful speeches by councillors, and I will not allow repetition. I will also not allow any disrespectful personal comments against other councillors, barracking, talking across the chamber, or talking loudly amongst yourselves. If I see any of these behaviours, I will stop the debate and call the meeting to order, and I will not hesitate to use standing orders to remove councillors from the meeting. If members wish to make a point of order or personal explanation, I will consider these on a case-by-case basis. Although standing orders allow individuals to be seated during their speeches, I would prefer, if whenever possible, councillors to stand when addressing the council so that you can be clearly seen and heard. When speaking, please ensure your microphones are turned on. If members wish to leave the meeting before it is finished, please follow Standing Order A25.7 and give your apologies before you leave via the Head of Governance Support. Please note that we are live streaming this meeting via the Council's YouTube channel to encourage more people to engage in our meetings. The proceedings of the Council meeting will also be recorded. Please can attendees refrain from watching the live stream, as this will cause interference for our viewers. We are not expecting any fire alarm testing today. In the event of evacuation, you will hear a recorded message requesting you to evacuate the building. Please leave by the nearest exit. The Riviera Centre staff will assist you. Once outside, please assemble in front of the tennis courts to the seaward side of the building. Please also ensure that all mobile phones and iPads are turned to silent. I will call a break if the meeting is going beyond 7 p.m. Apologies. Are there any apologies for absence?
Madam Mayor, we're aware that Councillor Hutchins will be arriving late to the meeting, otherwise and he's literally just walked into the room, Madam Mayor, but otherwise all members are now in attendance.
I propose that the minutes of the meeting held on the 18th of July 2024 to be signed as correct. Is there a seconder? I will now take the vote. All those in favour? And that's unanimous, thank you. Have members have any non-pecuniary or disposable pecuniary interests on the matters in today's agenda? I am pleased to introduce the first Airshow Volunteers Appreciation and Recognition Certificates. Without their time and commitment, we would not have been able to deliver a hugely entertaining and successful English Riviera Airshow for 2024. The number of certificates I'm presenting this evening demonstrates the incredible dedication of our volunteers, working together to create something extraordinary for local community and visitors to enjoy. Thank you very much. Would the Chief Executive please join me in presenting these?
Madam Mayor, I will invite the volunteers down one by one to receive their certificates from you. So firstly, Carol Beasley, who's the president of the Lions Club of Paignton.
Very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, there's a photo.
Oh, quick photo. Alan Tozer of the Lions Club of Paignton. Turn around and smile. Anne Tozer of the Lions Club of Paignton also.
Thank you.
Patrick Beasley, Lions Club of Paignton.
Thank you.
Picture. Oh, turn around.
Horror movie. Thank you.
Alan Crocker of React Disaster Response.
No problem, thank you.
Thank you.
Next, Dot Swan. It's always a longer way.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks. Thank you.
John Munford.
Thank you.
Turn around and smile.
you.
We've got Julie Bryant, whose certificate's being collected by her husband, Steve Bryant. And while Steve's coming, Councillor is coming up to collect his own certificate at the same time, to save you coming back twice.
Thank you very much. Oh yeah, do it first. Yes. Thank you.
Excuse me. Martin Faulkner.
Thank you.
Stuart Croscombe.
Thank you. Thank you. Help.
Thank you.
We've got some councillors who supported the event by volunteering. So firstly, Councillor Anna Tolshard.
Thank you.
Oh, no. No photos. No photos. Councillor David Thomas. No photo. No photo. No photo. Councillor Hayley Tranter. Councillor Jackie Thomas. And Councillor John Fellows.
Thank you very much. Okay, thank you. Great.
We've also got some staff who supported. So firstly, Catherine Williams. Emma Faulkner. Joe Penhaligon. Julie Anger. Matthew Redmond. Nikki Redmond. Phil Black. Madam Mayor, members, there were a number of volunteers who supported the event who are unable to attend this evening, so their certificates will be posted to them. Madam Mayor.
Has the Leader of the Council any announcement that he wishes to make?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have two announcements that I'd like to talk about, both children's services this evening. So I just want to take this opportunity to remind everybody that the consultation on a proposed new way of working for services for children with additional needs, including special educational needs, is now open. So, as you know, we are proposing to work on a new locality model to help drive improvements to mainstream inclusion and education, thus ensuring the needs of children and young people with high needs who are aged between 5 and 18, make sure that there's sufficient planning and that they are provided for. The new locality-based proposal sees education settings organised into clusters which will work in a much more collaborative way. So there are many ways of getting involved. If you want to learn more or have your say, either through an online survey, through a series of online team meetings, or a host of in-person meetings in locations across all 3 towns. The online survey is available now, and the dates for the in-person meetings start on Tuesday, the 8th of October. If anybody watching us would like any further information, please feel free to contact any of the elected councillors directly, or Councillor Nick Bye, who has the portfolio holder for children, or myself, who we would all be pleased to signpost you to the meeting that is the closest to you. And the second item, Madam Mayor, this evening is just a reminder also on National Care Leavers Week. So this is planned for the end of October. There are many events planned across the Bay. The theme for this year for Care Leaver Week is All of Us, We Are One. And the theme is about connecting communities. So again, we've got a whole host of opportunities, a whole host of events. We've also got a fundraising event called Sponsor the Care Experience Team, taking place on October the 3rd, where I urge all members to consider making a donation. Finally, and Councillor Bye was telling me just before this evening, that the social media for this event is now up and running, and the hashtag for all of this, which I'm sure Councillor Bye can tell you much more about than I can, the hashtag is NCLLW or NCLW Torbay. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. I understand the Chief Executive has no announcement she wishes to make. Okay. Has the Overview and Scrutiny Co-ordinator got any announcement he wishes to make?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have one announcement. I want to remind, or would like to remind members and allow the members of the public to know that there is a Overview and Scrutiny Spotlight Review coming up for the water and flooding. South West Water Environment Agency will be part of that review, and that is on the 8th of October at 5:30 in the banking hall at the Town Hall. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Okay, item number 6. We have received 2 petitions for presentation to the Council this evening. The first petition received requests that the Council take a formal decision to not sell the Breakwater car park in part or whole for the development purposes. The lead petitioner, Francis Dobson, has requested that this petition is deferred. The second petition received requests the Council to give cyclists a provision as part of the delivery of the current Harbour public realm project. The petition has approximately 54 paper signatures and 76 e-petition signatures, which qualifies with the Council's petition scheme. Please see page 17. The petitioner has requested to present the petition to the Council meeting. Please note there will be no debate on the petition in accordance with the Council's petition scheme. I understand that Bethan Huntley would like to speak on the petition. Welcome to the meeting, Miss Huntley. Would you like to take a seat at the microphone? You have 5 minutes, and I will let you know when you have 30 seconds remaining.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I was extremely disappointed to learn of the decision to scrap the safe, segregated two-way bike path from the Harbourside regeneration project with no alternative infrastructure planned. For the last 2 months, I've been engaging with Torbay Council in order to find a better solution for all users, but as of yet, they've been completely unwilling to consider any changes at all. After the underground sewage pipes were discovered, I do not believe that all other options for a redesign were explored. The idea of planting trees in above-ground planters was apparently dismissed, but considering the impact of having to completely redesign the scheme, would palm trees in raised planters not have been an appropriate compromise? The infrastructure would have been a flagship for active travel, and I firmly believe the message that build it and they will come would have been the case here, with families and people of all ages using this safe, protected, enjoyable path. Instead, cyclists are being given safe access to the road, a busy, narrowed road where cars are going to be forced to wait behind cyclists as opportunities to pass will be rare. Councillor Chris Lewis has stated that the road will be safer than cyclists than before, when it was basically a bus depot. As the word safer implies, it is still going to be dangerous, and the provision is only for existing cyclists, not those who Torbay Council are trying to target to change their behaviours and travel patterns. Is a bit less dangerous really what we should be achieving with this multi-million-pound, once-in-a-lifetime funding? A redesign including all elements was entirely possible, and even now incorporating some cycling infrastructure is still possible. In response to criticism of the scheme, Councillor Martin Brooke stated, "Us cyclists are very capable of riding through a 20-mile-an-hour zone." Personally, I am also a capable cyclist, but I do acknowledge this is a position of privilege. Along this narrow road, the safest thing recommended by the Highway Code is to confidently ride in the primary position, the middle of the lane, in order to deter vehicles from overtaking in an unsafe manner. However, this is unlikely to be attractive to less confident cyclists. It is not without its risks, and unfortunately, abuse is common. Sadly, I do not think Councillor Brooke realises the ableism of this statement, as when poor or no cycling infrastructure exists, minority groups within cycling, such as women or those with disabilities, are even less represented. Numerous people have contacted me to tell me that they will not now use the road as they feel it is dangerous. This includes a deaf person who used to cycle daily when living in another area of Devon, but due to terrifying experiences of being passed closely by traffic on Torbay roads, he now rarely uses his bike. He was delighted with this planned infrastructure, but now feels discriminated against at its removal, a position which I fully agree with. The speed limit is going to be reduced to 20 miles an hour, which is beneficial to safety, but sadly, it has not been our experience that this measure in other similar areas of the Bay have significantly changed the dynamics or created inviting roads for cyclists. By not providing any infrastructure, you have deterred many would-be cyclists from using this form of transport, and you've put cyclists and motorists into direct conflict in the now narrowed road. The number one reason for people not cycling in the UK is due to concerns over road safety. Therefore, this must be your priority as a council to address if you do actually want to get more people cycling, especially when completely redesigning a popular stretch of road. I understand that we are too far down the line to reinstate the two-way cycle lane within the project, but I believe the least worst option now for all concerned is to create a one-way cycle lane within the public realm, and then a similar lane can be created in the other direction when the northbound pavement is redesigned in the near future. Anyone opposing this on the grounds of safety should be reminded the undisputable fact that vehicles are far, far more dangerous to cyclists than cyclists are to pedestrians.
Ms. Huntley, you have 30 seconds remaining.
I acknowledge that not all cyclists will choose to use this lane, and those who feel confident cycling on the road can continue to do so. But if you do not create any infrastructure at all, those who do not feel safe cycling on the road will cycle on the public realm anyway. And by not managing this and creating a dedicated space for them, you do bring pedestrians and cyclists into unnecessary conflict. We are calling on Torbay Council to act as a progressive, supportive organisation and encourage cycling for everyone.
Ms Huntley, it's time up. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms.
Ms Huntley, the petition will be referred to the Director of Pride and Place, Alan Denby, for consideration in consultation with the Cabinet Member for Pride and Place, Transport and Parking, Councillor Billings. You will receive a letter from Alan Denby in due course to advise you of the outcome of your petition. Thank you, Ms Huntley. We have received a question from Margaret Forbes Hamilton regarding the invoking of break clause in the lease to the pitch and putt and public bowling green in Abbey Park, and who made the decision not to undertake a public consultation. Please refer to question 1 on page 19. Ms Forbes Hamilton, welcome to the meeting. Would you please take a seat at the microphone? You have 5 minutes to present your question, and I will let you know when you have 30 seconds remaining. This includes time for any supplementary questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening. The Cabinet response to the recommendations of the Overview and Scrutiny Board on the review of events, culture and tourism, 7th of February 2024, stated in Recommendation 5, a strategic business case is being developed to go to the Capital and Growth Board in April, and this will consider the landscaping project for the whole of the 17.8 acres of the Tor Abbey scheduled monument site. The business plan will include potential removal of the pitch and putt site. A public consultation may be required regarding the pitch and putt, conservation, repairs, and upgrade the Spanish barn. A decision was obviously made in April, as the notice to invoke the break clause in the lease was pinned to the door of the pitch and putt hut on the 29th of April. Why was a public consultation with residents, tourism providers and other interested parties not undertaken before the decision was made to invoke the break clause in the lease on the pitch and putt and public bowls facility in Abbey Park? And who made that decision to not undertake a public consultation? Where can the business case, business plan, underlying the decision to revoke the lease on the pitch and putt and public bowling green in Abbey Park be seen? Thank you.
Thank you, Ms Forbes Hamilton. With the Cabinet Member for Tourism, Events and Culture and Corporate Services, Councillor Jackie Thomas, please provide a reply.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Mrs Forbes Hamilton, thank you for your question, but I apologise in advance for such a long response, but I wanted to include as much detail as possible as to why the decision has been made and not made on a whim. following the recommendation from Overview and Scrutiny to consider whether the pitch and putt lease remain the most appropriate use of the space and to meet the Council's cultural and heritage objectives, this matter has received careful consideration. It is often forgotten that the 17-acre site of Tor Abbey is an ancient scheduled monument, the highest designation available in this country, and it is the same designation as held by Stonehenge. It is home to the best preserved monastic ruins in Devon and Cornwall, much of which is below ground archaeological beneath the pitch and putt. The Spanish barn is a Grade 1 listed building. As a council, we have a legal obligation to protect Tor Abbey's designation and maximise the archaeological history of the site. In assessing whether the pitch and putt was the most appropriate use of the site, considerations included: number 1, the Council's cultural and heritage objectives; 2, maximising the archaeological history of the site; 3, how the entire site can be better managed to protect its scheduled monument status; 4, historic England's position on damage to the Spanish barn; 5, how restoration projects can move forward in line with legal obligations and funding required; and 6, how income generation opportunities can be maintained to support a financially sustainable future for Tor Abbey. Taking all these things into consideration, the decision was made to return the land currently comprising of the pitch and putt back to community use. This meant that the council proceeded to terminate the pitch and putt's tenancy. Notice was given to the tenant earlier this year, with the land being taken back into Tor Abbey's management from the 1st of November 2024. The council did this in our capacity as a landowner, for which there is no requirement to undertake a public consultation. A business case for the next phase of the Abbey's restoration has been developed. The business case for the overall project does not provide a business plan for the pitch and putt space, but a rationale for the development of future developments and funding bids for the site, so that it can continue to be enjoyed by our community. The New Beginnings project will look at the Spanish barn, conservation, heating and facilities building, a visitor welcome building, re-landscaping Tor Abbey meadows including new pathways, improving Tor Abbey meadows infrastructure to support large events, site-wide lighting scheme, site interpretation, innovative installations to tell Tor Abbey's story, green sport infrastructure, sustainable biodiversity improved planting, free play area, and improvements to Tor Abbey North car park and interpreted wayfinding to the Abbey grounds. A project team will oversee this work, on which there will be youth representation and there will be wide-reaching engagement on proposals. I hope this answers anything that you may still have outstanding. Thank you.
Thank you.
I still have, I understand, some time.
You do. You have 3.5 minutes remaining if you'd like to ask a supplementary question.
Right, I am not satisfied with what I've heard. For the council to not conduct a public consultation and then make a decision behind closed doors is totally unacceptable. Has nobody read the council's community engagement and empowerment strategy? There is a petition on change.org that has now been signed by over 1,150 people who do not wish this facility to be closed. It's valued not only by visitors, but also very many residents who play on it regularly. It's accessible, affordable, develops skills, is a social and relaxing activity, family-friendly, and excellent low-impact exercise. To remove one of the few remaining tourist attractions from Torquay seafront will have a significant negative impact on surrounding businesses. It's essential that the business case or business plan is publicly available. All costs of this will include public money. The current income received by the council is £12,000 per annum, guaranteed for a sporting facility open 12 months of the year. Once it is closed, there is no guarantee of any future income being generated on this site, but the council will have to pick up the bill for future maintenance in perpetuity. It will not come under the cyclical agreement with Swissco. I would also remind you that the council will have to take on the public bowling green as well as under the lease, yet another expense. Much has been made of the state of the Spanish barn roof. So, if a golf ball is hit with a club, why would it have enough force to break through the roof? Only one reason. The roof is so old that it is falling to pieces. The company who carried out the recent work on the roof have stated that it is obviously very old and realistically in need of a full renewal. Many of the holes are the result of nail death and slate corrosion. A sensible solution to the problem...
Ms Forbes Hamilton, sorry, your time is up.
You didn't give me a 30-second warning.
Okay, 30 seconds remaining.
A sensible solution would to have the... that would solve the problem of the public desire to keep the course open would be to have a brand new roof which would give a warm, dry interior and the balls would not go through it. Thank you.
Does Councillor Jackie Thomas wish to respond?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I believe I gave quite a comprehensive answer to the original question. It is, at the end of the day, a landlord's decision. Any further proposals that we do have for the land, we will go out to consultation.
Too late.
So everybody can have their say as to what the proposals are moving forward. You know, this is a good news story. This is all about giving the site back to the community.
They've got it already.
Ms Forbes Hamilton, sorry, we're just going to listen to Councillor Jackie Thomas's response.
Okay, thank you.
So there's no debate on this. Okay, thank you.
So not just really, you know, a few people are going to use this site, but this is going to be opened up to our community, so many more people can use it. As far as the golf balls hitting the roof is concerned, it is only damaging the site of the golf course, not the other site. So consequently, the slates are getting further damaged and weakened by the golf course. So, you know, this is something that, you know, we have to take into consideration. As I say, this is a good news story. This is handing it back to the community. I'm happy to take any further, you know, a meeting further with you if there are anything else that you would like to discuss with me. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. We have received a question from Dr. Simon McGinns regarding how genuinely does the council support active travel. Please refer to question 2 on page 19. Dr McGinns, welcome to the meeting. Would you please take a seat at the microphone? You now have 5 minutes to present your question, and I will let you know when you have 30 seconds remaining. This includes time for any supplementary questions you may have. Thank you, Dr McGinns.
Thank you. Good evening. The Council has a number of policies in place saying that it supports active travel and has made repeated claims to that effect. For example, on the Council's website, it says, "We want to ultimately deliver improvements in Torbay that don't just simply encourage people to travel actively. We want to make it genuinely easier and more attractive so that people feel enabled and increasingly desire to make those journeys on foot, cycle, etc." And that's a direct quote from the Council's website. So that sounds great, but I've been cycling in Torbay for about 18 years, and I can't say it's been my experience that anything's improved in that time with regard to cycling provision. And the Council's track record suggests that improving matters for active travel isn't a priority. For example, the Council has provided almost no traffic-free or off-road cycle paths in Torbay. And in fact, there is a map of the Torbay cycle routes available on the Council's website. It hasn't been updated for a long time. Looks great, actually. It's very colourful. It shows lots of routes. But if you look closely, what you'll see is those are the main roads, mainly. Cyclists are being directed onto the main roads, chiefly. And painting a few white lines on busy roads doesn't make them safe cycle paths. The paths that do exist have issues and aren't joined up. Cyclists in Torbay risk injury every day when forced to share busy carriageways with cars, buses and lorries. I'll give you one example. I know Nick's going to talk about, in another question, the plan, the walking and cycling plan. So I won't go into that. But there is one particular trail mentioned in the plan of 2021, the hospital trail, which you may know goes up the back of Tor Station towards the hospital. It's made it to number 4 in the list of worst bike paths in the UK. I think that's an achievement for Torbay. It's difficult to get to the path or even find it from the south, owing to the way, and you have to go down a hill, up a hill and down a hill to get to the entrance to the path. It's also difficult for cyclists to cross Shippey Lane to access the northern part of the path because the plan said there was going to be a crossing. There's no crossing. Last but not least, there's a 20-step stairway in the middle of the cycle path, which is unbelievable. And that's the feature that's helped the path make it to number 4 in the UK. Recently, the Council's decided to remove the planned cycle path from the Harbour, as we've heard with the petition. And the Council's chosen instead to prioritise things like trees over active travel, forcing cyclists onto a single carriageway that will be, I estimate, twice as busy, but it'll be more busy, obviously, than before. And it's pretty busy now. I cycled down there the other day. It's rough. You're taking your life in your hands. This is not just a practical barrier for cyclists. It's symbolic. It's symbolic of what Torbay wants to do and wants to project. The presence of the planned cycle path on the Strand at the heart of Torbay would have demonstrated Torbay Council's commitment to active and sustainable travel in a very visible way. And by taking it out, that's making a statement too. Now, I know that, for example, cruise ships now are turning up with e-bikes so that people can go touring around the destinations. Well, they can't really do that in Torbay, can they? Because it's not friendly to cyclists. I also happen to have lived in Australia, and Australian cities are mainly very well served for cycle paths. For example, you can quite often commute to work by bike without ever having to drive down a road. Torbay is so far behind here, We've known we had to decarbonise for many years, and I hope there's nobody on the council who's in doubt about that. And cycling's a great way to do it. So, in my view, Torbay needs to step up to this and start supporting cyclists. So, my question is, how genuinely does the council support active travel, given its recent decision to remove the cycling lane from the Harbour development?
Thank you, Dr McGinns. Would the Cabinet Member for Pride and Place, Transport and Parking, Councillor Billings, please provide a reply?
Thank you, Dr McGinns. Thank you for your question. As the Cabinet Member for Transport and also a keen cyclist and walker, I really do appreciate your question on active travel. The Council adopted its local cycling and walking infrastructure plan in April 2021, and since then has been working on and developing detailed designs for the routes proposed. Many of those are what you've referred to earlier. The majority of these routes, or the significant majority of them, require large-scale investment to enable them to be brought forward, and therefore need to be supported by external grant funding, mainly from central government. Now, I've been really keen that we maximise our chances of securing such grant funding by having a series of proposals ready, waiting for the next funding rounds. And I've asked the team to proceed on that basis. I started in this post, inherited a department where that simply wasn't the case. So that's something that I can promise you has now changed. Now, regarding the hospital trail, and let's take some of those routes and go into detail of them, we're very aware of the issue with the crossing at Shippey Lane and also the lack of the ramp, the lack of the ramp on the route south from Shippey Lane. Solutions have been long discussed, but previous administrations have not been able to get those delivered. I'm very optimistic, on the back of what I referred to earlier in terms of off-the-shelf funding proposals, that this administration will be able to make better progress, and I look forward to being able to provide further updates in due course. Sadly, as I speak to you, I'm not able to give you those promises about when, but I look forward to being able to do that in due course. Regarding the Torquay Harbour Public Realm Scheme, the decision to admit the off-road cycle route wasn't based on a decision to deprioritise cyclists anyway. Rather, it was based on practical issues. The original design used the tree line to delineate the dedicated cycleway and provide separation between it and the large area of public realm adjacent to Torquay Harbour. Now, that separation was considered to be an important feature by the council and those designing the scheme, because it separated the area of footfall on one hand, which was expected to be a high area of footfall because the prime reason was to create an area for holding events and for regeneration, and to separate that from cyclists in the interests of safety. Now, unfortunately, as we've heard earlier, as the works were proceeding, it was identified that statutory undertakers' services were in a different location to that which had been understood. Relocating the services would have significantly delayed the project. It would also very significantly have taken the project over budget. And therefore, the team worked hard to try to work with the revised situation as it was on the ground. The trees, given the location of the utilities, couldn't be placed in the locations originally planned, and so couldn't serve the purpose of separating the new proposed cycle route from the pedestrian area. And so therefore it was decided to bring forward the cycling provision in an alternative way. And this included retaining cycling on the main carriageway, but reducing the road speed of the carriageway, and that was, in the team's view, and on the basis of the professional advice that the council received, the safest in the circumstances. I recognise the concerns that have been articulated, but the professional advice received was that within the circumstances, that was the best option. You rightly make the point, though, and I just want to touch on some of the points you made earlier in relation to cruise ships. The opportunity there is very significant. In relation to the last 3 cruise ships that docked in the bay, no e-bikes came ashore from any of those. Clearly that's an opportunity that we want to exploit. And if you look at alternative areas around in the wider region, there are these dedicated off-road routes. They're very well known, they're very well used. That's where I hope we can get to with the aforementioned funding when we're successful with the bids that I referred to earlier. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. McGinns, you may ask a supplementary question as long as it is relevant to your original question and within your 5 minutes. You have 50 seconds remaining if you want to ask a supplementary question.
Thank you for that. Just to go to your earlier piece of response, which was about giving progress updates. How will the progress updates be delivered?
I am hopeful that in due course I'll be able to make an announcement at one of these meetings, or the leader of the council will, when we're successful in one of the bids that we're working on. And I would hope that that could be celebrated by all of the cycle community, yourself, myself, and everyone else that would hopefully use these revised trails when they're improved in the way we'd all like. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Billings. Thank you, Dr. McGinns. We have received a question from Mr. Nick Huntley regarding the decision to remove the cycle path on Torbay Harbour front. Please refer to question 3 on page 20. Mr. Huntley, welcome to the meeting. Would you please take a seat at the microphone? You have 5 minutes to present your question, and I will let you know when you have 30 seconds remaining. This includes time for any supplementary questions you may have. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, thank you very much. Large public and private organisations start with a vision. This vision, supported by strategy, is underpinned by detailed plans that determine the application of limited resources. Every decision a council makes, every penny of public money must therefore follow a golden path, a golden thread from plans through strategy if it is to deliver this vision. Your vision, our vision, is a happy, healthy and prosperous Torbay for all. The various strategies that support this vision quite rightly place the health of residents at the forefront, a point made very well in the Joint Health and Wellbeing Strategy, which specifically aims to improve environmental sustainability and physical activity. Of equal importance, the Council have formally recognised and committed to the need to accelerate action and make significant progress in addressing climate change, especially pertinent as we are a coastal community. Could the Council therefore explain to me why, when faced with a decision of cycling infrastructure versus trees, or to put it another way, the safety of children, families, and tourists versus trees, they threw out this crucial section of the carefully considered local cycling and walking infrastructure plan, a plan which underpins the Council's strategies and vision. Before I ask for a response, I've heard the reason or excuse of previous consultation driving the decision. I do not know of any public organisation that would solely use a 6-year-old consultation to support current decision-making of such significance of magnitude, one which is so counter to the stated vision and strategy, and especially when so much has happened in the intervening period. Public opinion has changed dramatically in 6 years, with even greater focus on public health and our planet. Reconsidering the decision to remove a cycle path on the Torbay Harbour front by creating some provision in the public realm in the context of delivering against a long-term promise is surely the right and proper thing to do. This is not a single-issue topic. This project should be the catalyst for a greener and more sustainable Torbay, one which contributes to a happy, healthy and prosperous Torbay for all, attractive to residents and tourists alike. This £4.7 million story could be so much more positive. I would like to know if the Council are going to deliver safe cycling infrastructure as part of this project, thereby demonstrating that they are actually committed to delivering the LC WIP, the Cycling, Walking and Infrastructure Plan, which they adopted in 2021. I'd like to know if they're going to do that with actions and not just words. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr Huntley. Would the Cabinet Member for Place Development and Economic Growth, Councillor Chris Lewis, please provide a reply?
Thank you very much indeed, Madam Mayor, and thank you to you, Mr Huntley, for your question and the words you've just put before the Council. Thank you very much. The decision to admit the off-road cycle route through the Harbour Public Realm Scheme was based on practical issues and was not a decision to prioritise trees over cyclists. The original design employed the tree line to provide some segregation between the dedicated cycleway and the large open area of public realm that has been designed to hold events and encourage congregation of people to socialise and enjoy the stunning views of Torquay Harbour and Torbay as a key focus for regeneration. The need to move the tree line due to the location of statutory undertaker's plant meant that it couldn't serve the purpose of forming the boundary between the large volumes of people congregating and the massing and cyclists, as Councillor Billings stated. In the scheme, cyclists will have safe access points at either end of the strand to the carriageway, which will be a 20-mile-an-hour zone. The overall scheme has been designed to slow traffic flow with widened curb lines and a single lane in each direction. We will be running several test events through the winter and as part of the opening programme in the Easter holidays in 2025. This will allow us to assess how the public will engage with the space. We will also conduct a Stage 4 road safety audit in 2025. We will then take the results of both of these to inform any immediate and longer-term recommended changes to the scheme. Thank you very much, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Mr Huntley.
Thank you. Mr Huntley, you may ask a supplementary question. You have 1 minute and 20 seconds remaining.
I shall talk quickly, thank you. Councillor Lewis, thank you very much for your response. My question would be, has anybody on the Council actually visited the site? I cycled down here this evening via that location. And along the seafront, there is absolutely no provision in drop curbs to enable people to cycle onto the existing cycleway on Pork Street. It is not possible to join the 20-mile-an-hour zone that has existed with the infrastructure that has been put in place and then safely join the cycleway. Please could I ask that if this is going to be done properly, that somebody complete an assessment now before the infrastructure is incorrectly put in place, because it is not physically possible to cycle onto Pork Street.
30 seconds remaining, Mr Huntley. 30 seconds.
Okay, thank you. It's not possible to cycle, and as it stands at the moment, cyclists will have to stop in the carriageway, dismount their cycles, go up a curb, and then get onto the cycleway at Pork Street. Electric bicycles weigh up to 25 kilograms. That is not making it accessible to all, which is your stated vision. I would suggest that this is reviewed sooner rather than later so that public money is not wasted any further.
Thank you, Mr Huntley.
Thank you.
Time's up. Would the Cabinet Member for Place Development and Economic Growth, Councillor Lewis, please provide a reply?
Thank you very much indeed, Madam Mayor, and thank you again, Mr Huntley, for the question. Of course, I visited the site on numerous occasions, particularly over the last few weeks, few months. but I will certainly take that back to the engineers who have assured me that the scheme they've got going will be safe and that cyclists will be able to get onto the road. But I will take your point on board and will ask the engineers to come back to me. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Mr. Huntley. Please take your seat back in the audience. We have received a question from Mr. David Presley regarding the Joint Health and Wellbeing Strategy 22 to 26. Please refer to question 4 on page 21. Mr. Presley, welcome to the meeting. Would you please take a seat at the microphone? Thank you. You have 5 minutes to present your question, and I will let you know when you have 30 seconds remaining. This includes any time for a supplementary question. Thank you.
I've approached the problem which I see before you, ladies and gentlemen, about the Torbay Harbour road scheme from a slightly different angle. Before retirement for my sins, I was a planning officer for 42 years, dealing with local plans, structure plans, development control, monitoring, enforcement, minerals and waste sites. So I'm coming from the other side of the argument. What is happening here that's going to affect already existing plans and policies? I'm concerned that the Torbay Council is considering dropping provisions for cycle route through that scheme. Now, during my professional life, I always considered that the local planning authority should undertake their developments to a higher standard than is required for their own developments. And in so doing so, they can have the moral high ground when you're dealing with developers. Now, I've only heard, I'm not saying excuses, that's not a correct word, but it's one I can think of now. I've only heard things going wrong, so we will drop the scheme. I've heard and seen that with developers all the time, almost a standard excuse. So I'd just like to remind you, if I may, with respect, that the actions that you are thinking of doing is contrary to your policies and strategies. I'll refer to Torbay Local Plan, Policy TA1, Transport and Accessibility, and Policy TA2, Development Access, that's sections 3 and 4. And members will recall that these policies were used by the Council to ensure improved road safety, quality of life and equality of access for all, reduction in conflict between road users, provision of more sustainable modes of transport, and enhancement of cycling infrastructure, all very laudable aims. The provision of improved cycling structure also is one of the components of the cross-cutting areas of environmental sustainability contained in the Council's Joint Health and Wellbeing Strategy, which seeks to achieve physical activity and to reduce inequalities. My concern is that if the Council decides that the highway scheme is to no longer include segregated provision for cyclists, then how can it justify imposing such requirements on other developers within Torbay? In other words, I would expect the Council to continue to provide segregated cycle route through the harbour to set a good example to other developers, and one which would give the authority an unquestionable justification for it to uphold and enforce its policies and strategies when determining future planning applications and fighting any subsequent planning appeals and public inquiries. My question, therefore, is how does the Council intend to continue to implement its approved policies and joint health and welfare strategy when considering future planning applications for developers, and also in making statements of case and future appeals, if it does not comply with its own approved policies?
Thank you, Mr. Presley. Would the Cabinet Member for Place and Development and Economic Growth, Councillor Chris Lewis, please provide a reply?
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. And thank you, Mr. Priestley. And clearly, in the role you played for 40 years, You're much more of an expert than I am. But as you know, all new developments are assessed against the current national and local planning policy and other relevant strategies, which include the Joint Health and Wellbeing Strategy 2022-26, the inclusion within new development of the provision for healthy living, such as open spaces. And cycle routes is key, particularly under priority 1, improving mental health, but also in priority 4, healthy ageing and cross-cutting theme of physical activity. As you know, all planning applications are assessed on their own individual merits, taking into account national and local planning policies. With regards to the Torquay Harbour Public Realm Scheme, the difficult decision to admit the cycle path had to be made due to the pressures with the existing utility services and the need for the provision of new trees within the scheme. I hope this helps. Thank you, Mr. Presley.
Thank you. Mr. Presley, you may ask a supplementary question as long as your question is relevant to your original question and within your 5 minutes. You have 1 minute and 30 seconds remaining. Do you have a supplementary question?
Yes, I just would like to think, as an ex-local planning officer, will the council be supporting your staff or the local planning authority staff when they have to face up to some very, very serious questions, making the same reasoning as you have, sir, at a public inquiry?
Thank you. Would the Cabinet Member for Place Development and Economic Growth, Councillor Chris Lewis, please provide a reply?
Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Presley. And I would refer you back to what I said. All planning applications are assessed on their own individual merits, taking into account national and local planning policies. I'm sure that if there was a scheme of this nature, then our officers would be able to find any appeal in the true sense, as they always do, and take a practical view on it. Thank you very much indeed, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Presley. Please take your seat back in the audience. We have received a question from Dr. Anne Ashworth regarding if Torbay consulted with local cycling groups about the revised roadside plans which do not include a cycle path. Please refer to page 5, to question 5 on page 21. As Dr. Ashworth is unable to attend this meeting, the question will be read out by Mr. Ron Keegan. Mr. Keegan, welcome to the meeting. Would you please take a seat at the microphone? Thank you. You have 5 minutes to present Dr. Ashworth's question, and I will let you know when you have 30 seconds remaining. This does include any time for a supplementary question. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm Ron Keegan, the president of the Mid-Devon Cycling Club, which was founded in 1930, so is actually, I guess, older than anybody here this evening. So my question is on behalf of Dr. Anne Ashworth, and it simply is, has Torbay Council consulted with local cycling groups such as the Mid-Devon Cycling Club, the Cyclists Touring Club and the Velo Park Veterans Group, which collectively have over 1,000 members? Have they consulted about the revised roadside plans which do not include a cycle path? And if they have not consulted, why have they not?
Thank you, Mr. Keegan. Would the Cabinet Member for Place Development and Economic Growth, Councillor Chris Lewis, please provide a reply?
Busy chap today. Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. And thank you very much, Mr. Keegan. And thank Dr. Ashworth for placing her question. Sorry she couldn't be here today. The development of the Harbour Public Realm Scheme for Torquay has been over several years. As has been outlined in response to the earlier questions, when the project was on site, it became clear that changes needed to be made that could not have been foreseen. This made it necessary for the Council to determine how the project could move forward without increasing the budget or prolonging the programme, with a rapid decision needed to be made at a point in time when over 50% of the physical works were underway. Had these changes been identified prior to the project being on site, wider consultation would have been undertaken. And I take your point, Mr. Keegan. I mean, we have a lot of respect for the Mid-Devon Cycling Club, and I know I've worked a lot with them when we did the velodrome for them. I do believe that this project is a good project. It is unfortunately we can't include the cycle lane, but it is only 200 yards, I would suggest. I would love your cycling club to come and have a competition all around Torquay when we can close the roads off and do the job properly. I think 200 yards is, I'm not sure how your club works, but we haven't got a cycle path to the right of it or to the left of it. So it would only be those less than 200 yards where they can actually let off steam, and there will be a 20-mile-an-hour speed limit. I don't know how fast your cyclists go, but certainly the electric cycles go faster than that. You know, if you want us to do a cycle race around Torquay, I'm your man. Come and contact me. I think if you look at what the scheme was, how the layout of the road was before, with the bus terminal, buses were coming out all the time. It was highly dangerous. I believe this road, and I've said it, and I've been quoted, I think this will be a lot safer for cyclists. I have been down there. I have seen that cars and cyclists, I agree, cycle in the middle of the lane to stop people overtaking you. It will be a lot safer. I would like to think, and Councillor Billing said that maybe we'll come back and have a refresh, and I've said in the response to the other one that there will be a refresh. There has to be under the highway terms. We will look at it again. But I hope that everyone will engage and will be delighted at this new scheme, which started off, and it was cross-party when it started before we came in. We've managed to get it going and get it delivered. But I hope that you will come back and say, Councillor Lewis, we like the scheme, we're delighted it went forward, it's improved and it's better for the tourists, the residents and the businesses around the Strand. I think it'll be a great scheme, and I hope everyone will be behind it. And we look forward to, in the months ahead, having that open space at the Strand where we can hold events and really make it an attractive place for Torquay. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Mr. Keegan, you may ask a supplementary question as long as it is relevant to Dr. Ashworth's original question. You have 4 minutes remaining. Do you have a supplementary question?
I don't have a supplementary question, Madam Mayor. That was simply a question on behalf of Dr. Ashworth. And I would simply hope that there will be more consultation in the near future, whereby we can look at a number of related issues.
Thank you, Mr. Keegan. Please take your seat back in the audience. I move to item number 8, members' questions. The questions and answers have been circulated and are noted as submitted. Members, these are available on your iPads under late reports pack. I will ask for any supplementary questions. For those members asking a supplementary question, it must arise directly out of the original question or reply. May I remind members that supplementary questions shall not include a statement. I will be interrupting you if I consider your supplementary question is a statement. Please note there is a time limit of 1 minute to ask each supplementary question. The response time for each supplementary question is 3 minutes, and the overall maximum time for members' questions is 30 minutes. I refer to question 1 in respect of the right care, right person model. Councillor Long, do you have a supplementary question?
No, thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. I refer to question 2 in respect of the Ilsham Valley sewage pumping station. Councillor George Darling, do you have a supplementary question?
Yes, Madam Mayor. From the question, I appreciate the council does not have a statutory responsibility to monitor the sewage network. However, it does have a responsibility or duty to advocate for residents in seeing these sewage spills reduced. So beyond just an already delayed overview and scrutiny meeting, what has the council been doing to hold South West Water to account on this?
Thank you. Councillor Chris Lewis, please provide a response.
Thank you very much indeed. Obviously, we're constantly in touch with South West Water, as I hope the member of Parliament for Torbay is as well, because I know he's a big champion in that. And it is, of course, as was announced by the Chairman of Overview and Scrutiny, coming to Overview and Scrutiny in October, where you can ask that very question. But I would also like to say we've really got to be positive about our bathing water. We have got blue flags. We don't want to put people off, tourists coming to Torbay. Let's be positive, work with South West Water, find a solution where there have been difficulties with the pumping station. But I believe we're doing a good job getting those blue flags out year after year after year. Let's not be negative. Let's be positive and move forward. Thank you very much, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Lewis. I refer to question 3 in respect to the review of the single person discount for council tax. Councillor Long, do you have a supplementary question?
Yes, please, Madam Mayor, and I'd like to thank Councillor Tarman for his comprehensive reply. And one aspect of the answer that didn't quite capture everything in the question was on the tone of the correspondence that we send to members of the public on issues like this. I know that's something that Councillor Cowell worked very hard on to try and change, and I just wondered whether Councillor Tarman can update us on that at all. Thank you.
Councillor Timon, please provide a response.
I think that was partly answered in here. Having reviewed it myself and having asked others to review it, I think the general feeling was that there was nothing seriously wrong with the tone of the letter. It is the duty of us as a council in putting out a document like that to explain the situation, to explain what the consequences are if people do not provide correct information on council tax, and if people take that as being aggressive or whatever, I take it and read it as actually being clear and concise about what people's responsibilities are. So I think, in general, I would question the tone. We did, as is said in here, make 2 small amendments. One regarding the timing of the line that people could call. In the original letter, there had been no time put on when the line was open. That has now been added to the letter. It might have been that some people trying to get through were phoning out of hours. I don't know whether that's the case, but at least now any version going out makes it clear when that phone line should be available. I appreciate that's not to do with the tone, that's factual. And I think the other element of change put in here was an element of clarity in that members of the public could only be liable to a fine if they did not tell us about a change of circumstances. That particular phrase is absolutely mirrored in what's stated on the council tax demands that are sent out to all residents once a year, and in fact to some residents more than once a year when changes take place. There is no difference in tone between that and between the elements in this letter in that regard.
Thank you. I refer to question 4 in respect of the grant funding from the government's Youth Investment Fund. Councillor Long, do you have a supplementary question?
Yes, please, Madam Mayor. Councillor Bai kindly mentioned in his answer the support of Torbay communities has recently been brought in to help with this. I'm only aware that their involvement has been brought about due to the work of particularly Councillor Cowell and Councillor Law and myself. And so the essence of my question is in the original question, which is what involvement has there been from himself and the leader of the council in this latter stage of this issue. Thank you.
Councillor Bai, please provide a response.
Thank you so much indeed, Madam Mayor, and to Councillor Long. Absolutely, I've been involved in numerous meetings from straight away when I was the lead member and visited and met, and then it was staff from the TDA, numerous meetings that have followed on, a meeting earlier this year that involved our Member of Parliament, who the representatives from the Acorn Centre had approached, and then a meeting that involved the relationship manager from the Youth Investment Fund. There was a meeting I accept that I missed on the 13th of August because I was away. Subsequently, as referred to in here, we've received a letter from the trustees from the Acorn Centre, and I've been very much involved in the response to that letter, very much supporting. And I want to say in this forum, and express my thanks to our Chief Executive, to those who are the TDA, who are now the Council, our Director of Children's Services, our Legal Officer and Monitoring Officer. The response from the team to try and get this over the line has been remarkable. It has been the most frustrating process that I have been involved in. We are now very much at the last knockings, as it were, the last chance saloon to get this project over the line. A meeting is taking place today, and I very much hope that that will not replicate the pattern of previous meetings where we think we've reached agreement and then subsequently something has not been signed up for. But I hope that the meeting that is taking place today will result in this much needed investment of nearly £1 million on youth provision in an area where it's desperately needed. I very much hope that it goes forward, and I've been very much involved all the way through. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I move to item 9, implementation of the accommodation repurposing projects, hotels to homes, and acquisition of Scheme 1. Please refer to page 25 and the Cabinet's recommendation circulated earlier today. Can Councillor Tyerman please put the Cabinet's motion to the Council?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The Cabinet met yesterday, and as a result of that are making actually what is quite a simple recommendation to Council. And the proposal I am putting forward today is that the capital programme be uplifted by £3 million, wholly funded by capital grant received from MHCLG to commence delivery of the accommodation repurposing project, also known as hotels to homes. The Cabinet at the same time made the decision to proceed with the purchase of the first hotel as a turnkey purchase, and that's a Cabinet decision, not therefore coming on to Council. But the Cabinet's decision to make that purchase is subject to Council tonight deciding to put the money into the capital programme. If the money is not in the capital programme, then the purchase could not proceed. So although it's very simple what we're asking to be agreed this evening, I think it's worth saying that a whole lot of work has gone into how this scheme might look in a wider context going forward. And we have put in the papers that have been issued to you for this meeting, under the exempt appendix, quite a lot of detail, some of the options that are being explored. But none of those are part of the decisions that were made last night, or most of them are not part of the decisions that were made last night or the decision in front of us today. One of the elements of that is that we will be bringing forward a paper to Council. I hope it will be in December, but it will, if not December, it will be shortly afterwards, to see how this scheme may be taken forward beyond the purchase of a single hotel into a recurring programme that hopefully will go on for years ahead of us. So why are we doing this? I think we all know that there is a real shortage of affordable accommodation, particularly at social rent levels in Torbay. In fact, I've had a lot of meetings recently, and I think the same thing is reflected across the whole of Devon. I think we're probably no better or worse than Devon in having a pretty difficult situation, but we need to try and address that in Torbay. What I would say is for the longer term scheme, it is going to be vital to have the support of Homes England funding going forward. And I would like to thank Councillor Darling in his capacity as MP for Torbay in arranging for a meeting that he and I had with Neil Hook, who is the Director for the South of England and London for Homes England, in which we discussed a number of items, including this programme, and I believe the response we were getting was that this is the sort of thing they would wish to and intend to approve. Homes England, of course, are in a slightly strange state at the moment, waiting for the budget and waiting to know what funding they've got available. But as Councillor Darling and I heard on Monday, they are very optimistic that they will have a significant amount of money to fund the government's intention to increase house building generally. So I think this is a small project for Torbay in increasing the numbers. If we were to do, say, 2 of these schemes a year, it probably will only add about 30 houses or 30 properties to the social rent. But compared with our performance and what we've managed to achieve in recent years, 30 a year, I think, is a really good advance. And I hope it will be the forerunner of many other schemes that we can bring forward to push our social rented numbers up and help dress what has been traditionally a very, very low level
Councillor
in
Timon,
Torbay.
you've got 30 seconds.
So just to summarise again, all we're asking Council to agree tonight is the capital programme be uplifted by 3 million, wholly funded by capital grant at this stage, though that could change in a paper being brought forward in the future. If we can bring Homes money in to supplement some of this, it releases more of that government funding to put into the next project.
Thank you, Councillor Timon. Is there a seconder?
Madam Mayor, I'm absolutely delighted to second this proposal and reserve my right. Thank you.
Thank you. I now invite debate. Councillor Long.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. And I would like to start off by thanking Councillor Timon for the approach he has taken on this item. I know that I have appreciated the information sharing and the meetings, etc. he has had with both myself, and I think I can speak for Councillor Cowell as well, that we have appreciated that very much. And I think particularly in light of the 50-50 split on this council, I think his approach has been exemplary, and I think if his approach had been taken on other issues by the leadership of his group, then this council might not be in the mess that it is now. The Lib Dem group are broadly supportive of this item, and if we had remained as part of the administration, I imagine that we would also have undertaken similar schemes. Indeed, we did similar things on temporary accommodation. And as Councillor Timon mentioned, It's been good to see that our Member of Parliament has also been championing affordable housing in Parliament, and I have to say it is refreshing to have a Member of Parliament willing to work cross-party with a council of a different political colour. Thank you. However, we do have, I should have learnt my lesson on that, shouldn't I? However, we do share some concerns. I mentioned last night that 6.5.3 of the report says that providing a comprehensive management system is a disadvantage. And I feared that that showed a rather strange mindset, that viewing a public service as a disadvantage was a rather strange thing to do. I was assured by Councillor Byer that it was a drafting matter, but I don't think that drafting has been changed between last night and tonight. The second issue we are concerned about is that when Tor Vista was closed by this administration, the report outlined that the council would have to think about how it would influence the market to deliver more affordable homes. And after nearly a year and a half later, of dither and delay, we appear to have the answer, but sadly the message in this report sends out is very confusing. On the one hand, 2.4 of the report says that the council wants to increase the level of affordable homes and stimulate neighbourhood renewal and regeneration. That's all well and good, absolutely fine. But then the report spoils things in 6.5.5 by saying that the council wants to offload its housing stock to a registered provider. The report then goes on to say, or hint, that this is unlikely to happen. This gives the impression and the message that affordable housing is not a priority for this council. We feel that mixed messaging should end. On this side, we feel that the council should have its own housing stock. After all, that's why councils were set up in the first place under the Local Government Act. And having our own housing stock would also make it easier for councillors to raise issues of how on behalf of tenants with our own housing department. As I know from various colleagues, raising issues with housing associations can be problematical. And so I would like to propose the amendment in the name of myself and Councillor Cowell, calling for the Cabinet to consider the Council retaining its housing stock. And I'm happy, Madam Mayor, for what I've been saying to be that proposal. Thank you.
Do you have a seconder? Councillor Cowell?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I rise to second and reserve my right. Thank you.
I now invite debate on the amendment. Councillor Fox?
Madam Mayor, thank you for want to thank the delivery of the report. I just want to ask one question from a planning point of view. Does this report in any way affect the protection of hotel stock within our principal holiday accommodation areas? Thank you.
Councillor Steve Darling?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and I would welcome this report that we have before us this evening, because it is a step in the right direction. I just wish that it was tackling houses in multiple occupation, which is the real challenge as to why we have poor quality housing that results in challenges for those who are most in need in our communities across the Bay. But we will take the half a loaf that is before us this evening. My concern, Madam Mayor, is the fact that this new administration that is running the local authority has blotted its copybook with housing associations. The fact of the matter is that many of us who wish to see affordable housing across Devon have tried to engage with housing associations, but they have been shell-shocked by the previous Conservative government and are not in the best state to engage with us. That is why we made the decision, when we're in control of the council, that we are best being masters of our own destiny on this and not hope and pray that others will engage and play ball with us. I would also like to draw the attention to Preston Down Road, where clearly there was a level of romancing and engagement with a housing association that we ended up leaving standing at the altar. Now, what message does that send to housing associations that we now want to play footsie under the table with them again? I think that colleagues are spot on and we are best being massive own own destiny, and I look forward to common sense prevailing this evening and this getting a unanimous backing. Thank you.
Councillor, by just one moment. Just to be clear, we're debating the amendment, not the original motion. Councillor By.
Thank you so much, Madam Mayor. I would just like to respond, if I may, nonetheless, to points that have been raised. Planning is completely separate, so this is not in any way a planning meeting, and whatever project is taken on will go through the planning channel. But my understanding it is, and we mustn't refer to what is an exempt business, but any project under this initiative has to be redundant accommodation. So we're not looking at an up and running hotel, we're not looking at an up and running care home or an up and running office block. We are looking essentially at redundant accommodation, principally what we envisage in the Bay to be redundant hotels. So that's number one, but planning is always a separate matter. This is the principle of the project. And I want to refer, 2.1, just to get this absolutely off my chest, which was in the report that was there for Cabinet and is here this evening. In the early 2000s, the Torbay area regularly delivered an average of 100 to 180 new affordable homes per annum, reaching a peak in 2013-14 of 273 new affordable homes. Since then, delivery has dropped significantly. Average annual delivery over the last 4 years has been just 36 homes. So we want to get back to a time when the Bay, and dare I say it, my time, because that was a legacy of my time in office, delivering significant numbers. We had a target of 100. We got nowhere near 100 in recent years. This is a project, money from central government, that the council will receive to acquire vacant commercial premises to turn into much, much needed home. I think it's in the public domain. This is to be 14 further homes. What is wrong with that? The amendment, and Councillor Tarman is much better at detail than I am, the amendment unfortunately then means that we wouldn't be able to pass the thing on to sell it, the asset, and then take a receipt from a registered home provider to then acquire another one. My understanding is that the particular beauty of this project is that ideally over years, it's not just 14 new units, it's further projects of the same sort when we've taken a receipt from the sale of the first one. If you accept this, and I'm sure it's very well intentioned, but if you accept this amendment, we then have to hang on to it, or you're encouraging us to hang on to it, we then can't do what the project is all about, which is selling it on to bring in money to go and do the thing again. I mean, goodness me, this is one unmentionable, top secret, hush-hush, redundant holiday accommodation building. What we want is to keep turning it over and have a whole stream of redundant holiday accommodation or other commercial premises turned into homes. If you say we don't sell it on, it's one off, it's only 14 units. If we do this and take the money, we can do it again and again and again, and hopefully get back up to the numbers of homes, affordable homes delivered from my time.
Thank you, Councillor By. Councillor David Thomas.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And first of all, I'd just like to thank Councillor Long for his recognition on the information sharing that has been from this side across to Councillor Long and Councillor Cowell. And we welcome that is actually recognised. such a shame that it didn't follow in the opposite direction, as it was only when we walked in that we saw that there was an amendment before us this evening. And really, 2 points, I think. This ultimately, this money from government is designed to be a revolving fund so that we can, as Councillor Bai said, deliver a lot more homes, affordable homes, than just those 14. Now, there is a similar scheme that operated in Blackpool. Okay, they had a lot more money in their project than we currently have, where they were able to buy hotels and convert them into affordable housing on multiple scales and turn it over. This scheme isn't exactly that, but it allows the opportunity to revolve this money. It is, there was a conversation there about, and I would say, the proof of the pudding, Councillor Darling, will be in the eating. It will be what we are able to deliver, not today, but by the end of this administration. How many affordable homes will we be able to deliver? That's really, really important. And I think also, from a constitutional point of view, if the opposition have a problem or a concern with cabinet decisions, the correct way of dealing with those through the Constitution is through the call-in process. It exists for those issues, those items that anybody is unhappy with, to effectively bring that forward. What this motion tries to do this evening is it tries to circumvent the constitutional arrangements that this council has, and basically says, we don't wish to go through any of that process, we won't take it to overview and scrutiny, we won't have a conversation with the cabinet, we'll just bring it straight to council and we'll drop it on council through the back door tonight. That's very much how it feels. It doesn't feel as though there's been a conversation at all, which is somewhat concerning, and it's for that reason that I won't be able to support this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Billings.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We heard earlier about the request for a unanimous vote. I also hope there'll be a unanimous vote to reject the amendment. Let me explain to you why. Everyone in this chamber believes in the importance of affordable housing. That's what this project is ultimately going to deliver. The only difference is whether it's more important to have a greater number of affordable homes, a greater number, or to have a few and the council continue to own them. Because that is the core substance that is behind this amendment. The purpose of this funding is a revolver. It's taken from government, it's used to turn a redundant building into homes, it's extracted back out of that asset, that accommodation block, and it's used again and again and again. And the purpose of that is to turn a large stock of existing redundant derelict buildings that aren't being fully utilised into much needed affordable housing. That's the purpose of the project. That can't be achieved if when we do the very first building, we continue to own it and we can't recycle the funding back into the second project, the third project, the fourth project. Now, if you'd like to help me, ask the MP for Torbay or the MP for South Devon for more money from government so that we can own more homes in a separate grant funding award, great. But that's not what this funding was for. This funding was for a revolver to be used on one project, to be recycled to the next one, to the next one, to the next one. Now, that's what I hope we can enable Councillor Tyerman, the rest of the team, yourselves who've contributed to this, to do. That's what I would like to see, because I'd like to see a large number of affordable homes delivered. What I'm concerned about is that amendment will see the first tranche delivered, and without any funding addition from government, that funding we don't know about at this stage, we won't get any more. So let's not get held up about the difference of affordable housing. We're all thinking it's important. I'm simply saying the provision of a greater number of affordable homes is what's primary, not the continuing ownership by the council of that first tranche, because that point is the key substance that is the difference between this amendment. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Cowell, you reserved your right.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And sat listening to this debate, I actually get more and more dispirited and disheartened, because I think that there's a fundamental issue at stake here, and that is about the principle of a council owning and delivering council housing stock. Now, let's be clear. This amendment is asking Cabinet to consider the opportunity. Not to do it, but to consider the opportunity. You guys are saying you're not even going to give it any consideration by voting against it. That goes to the nub of Torbay's housing crisis. We have an MP who's been working with a relevant Cabinet member, Councillor Timon, and I echo Councillor Long's appreciation of the involvement we had in pre-briefings. It is an exemplar. And I'm delighted to see that Councillor Darling and Councillor Timon have been working together to lobby Homes England, because Homes England will be the vehicle to unlock so many of our stalled brownfield sites that are subject to our major regeneration projects. And the message I'm getting from members opposite is we're not really bothered about delivering social housing for Torbay. We want others to do it. We want others to do it. We will enable it, but we're not going to take responsibility for it. There's guffaws and shaking of heads. Prove me wrong, because I've not seen any evidence in the last 18 months. In fact, I've not seen any evidence from members opposite for many, many years. And I take Councillor By's point about delivery in the early 2000s. We really struggled to get some housing projects over the line because of the funding. We had to rebuild reputations and relations with Homes England because they didn't exist. They considered Torbay to be an area that wasn't really committed to the delivery of social housing. And let's be blunt about this. This is what we're talking about. Not affordable homes, but social housing. Affordable rented homes at 80% of market value are unaffordable to our local population. We have to be striving to deliver social rented in Torbay. Other registered providers that already operate in Torbay, and there are others that we would like to get involved in Torbay, and Councillor Darling referred to the one earlier at Preston Down Road, that is sending out the wrong messages. For them, it's about quantum. They don't want to be delivering 10 houses here, 20 houses there. They want to have a quantum of stock to make it viable for them to operate in Torbay. Torbay Council can do that. There are many, many small sites in Torbay that we've identified previously that, as a council, with Homes England funding, we could actually start delivering, whether it's 5 homes here or 15 homes there. We can do that, but we need to have the mechanism in the vehicle to be able to hold and manage that stock. This recommendation in particular, this amendment, is talking about the opportunity and the possibility. I am 100% behind this particular scheme. I think it's good. It does repurpose redundant hotel stock for the right reasons. And it's deliverable at pace, which is what our people on the housing waiting list, Devon Homes Choice, are crying out for. So I would urge members opposite to consider the opportunity. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Cow. Councillor Long.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. And I've already articulated that we are going to support this item tonight, so I'm slightly surprised by the slightly aggressive approach that has been from the other side to this. But I'll answer some of the points. I'm glad that Councillor Thomas appreciated my comments about Councillor Timon, and I hope that he will then follow Councillor Timon's example in other items that this council deals with. And I'm slightly surprised that Councillor Thomas was surprised at this amendment, because I have been mentioning this for weeks, this item in this amendment. I've mentioned it at least 4 meetings in which either Councillor Timon or other members of the Cabinet have been in. So the idea that this is a surprise must mean that he wasn't listening to what I was saying. And the way this amendment was tabled, and I've had this conversation before, is in stark contrast to that awful meeting last December when members opposite were tabling verbal amendments in the middle of meetings with no notice whatsoever. So I'm just following the different ways of working that we all signed up to. As Councillor Kell mentioned, all the amendment is doing is asking for the Council and the Cabinet to consider council housing ownership, council stock ownership. It's not actually affecting this particular item this evening. And I think the reaction to this proposal identifies the concern that I have, is that actually the party opposite is, the reason for being against this is dogmatic rather than practical. We've had it before over Preston Down Road, where we were told that there would never be more than 30% affordable housing in Preston, for example. And so I think this is just more of that, which is very, very concerning indeed. There does seem to be a slight flaw, which Councillor Billings has identified. The report actually identifies, and I think Councillor Timon has mentioned this to me in one of our meetings, that the report actually says that the selling off of the housing to housing providers may not actually happen. So there is a flaw in this revolving argument that you're proposing, in which case we might have to think of a plan B and actually have a plan for building our own housing stock. Thank you.
Councillor Timon?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I don't know whether I'm going to be very popular here, but I have to say I'm going to disagree with some of what's been said from this side of the chamber. I equally disagree with some of what's been said from the other side of the chamber. I think the important thing here is to actually keep our options open. Not to resolve at the moment whether we hold the property long term or whether we remove it. I think what we need to do is take that decision depending upon market conditions in the way that services both our residents and the security that they will have, and serves our own ability to continue the scheme, continue the project. That might be that we could fund the revolving element through Homes England support and with council borrowing, or it might be that it is best served to regain the money by moving the stock on. I can't tell what the market will be like in 5 years' time. I really don't think that our registered providers, as they are in the moment, would be interested in taking this on. That could be a very different position in 5 years' time, and I think that is the time actually to have this debate. I therefore think the paper we will be bringing forward for Council to debate in a few months' time will actually leave this subject undefined, unresolved. We'll leave those options open, and I think that's the mature way of going forward. Because at the end of the day, I don't think what matters about the management of these is anything like as important as the decision to get as many built and into operation and actually helping solve our housing crisis. I appreciate that what's in front of us asks Cabinet to request to consider the opportunity. I actually think as an amendment it's somewhat superfluous, because that decision will be coming back in the next report for Council to consider, debate and come to a decision on it as to how this project runs long term. I think therefore to me this as an amendment is redundant. It's something we will be doing, I will be doing along with our officers in looking at these proposals, and it's certainly a major part of that will depend upon how constructive we are able to be with our discussions with Homes England. I take everything that's been said from the opposite side in terms of our relationship with Homes England has not in the past been where it needs to be. That's why I was absolutely delighted to meet with the senior Homes England guy for the south of England. He has also committed himself to Councillor Darling and myself to visiting us here in Torbay, but he wants to leave that until we've got a few more schemes working with the local Homes England team. So we'll be progressing that. In fact, our Chief Executive and I last week went to a meeting in Exeter where we spoke to the Homes England person who was there, who's the number 2, the regional guy who's looking after this, and I think we're doing everything possible to improve that relationship. Please leave me to work on this. Please leave me to work with our officers in coming back with the right proposals in December or February, whenever we can get it to you. I'm very much hoping it'll be December, but that in a to a large extent will depend upon the speed of those discussions with Homes England. In the meantime, I think this is redundant.
You've got 30 seconds remaining.
And I therefore ask we just put it to one side and reject it and stick to the core decision that's there tonight and leave these other issues to that paper that we will all have the ample opportunity to debate at a future council meeting.
Thank you, Councillor Timon. We're now going to take a vote on the amendment. So can we put our hands up really high as well, please? All those in favour? All those against?
Madam Mayor, that's an equality of vote. Please indicate how you wish to use your casting vote.
Against.
Madam Mayor, on that basis, the amendment is therefore lost.
Okay. Is there any debate on the original motion? Okay, if there's no further debate, Councillor Bye, you reserved your right.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. I think we've heard the voice of wisdom tonight, so all that I've had to say I will have said, and I'll now give way to the proposer, the voice of wisdom, Councillor Timon. Thank you.
Councillor Timon.
Yeah, there's some reputations. I don't know whether they sit too comfortably. It might be nice to be a voice of wisdom, but sometimes you feel that that's not a compliment.
I meant it nice.
I know you did, Nick. I think most of what needed to be said has been said, but there are one or two points that were raised in discussion on the amendment that I didn't deal with in responding to in talking about the amendment, because I think they relate more to the general motion. And the first one of those is the reference to houses of multiple occupation. And I think one of the big pluses of this scheme is it actually can remove and turn into social housing properties that otherwise might become houses of multiple occupation. So though this scheme isn't going to deal with the ones that already exist, I think this scheme can actually help prevent a few buildings becoming such. Therefore, I think it has a part to play in that. I hope we can look at other schemes going forward to help address some of the other issues that are around. I think the only other thing I wanted to say that I think it's probably a bit disingenuous to say about actually that this is a council in a mess. I think this council is beginning to put things forward that are moving us forward. I know that relationship with Homes England I've referred to is beginning to build and is a lot stronger than it has been. I believe that our relationship with councils across Devon and the work that they and Torbay have done in putting together a housing report, which was presented to MPs on Monday, is again a really strong step in the right direction. And you know, if you're talking about affordable housing, we've also started work on the construction at St Kilda's. There are things happening, and I certainly refute the suggestion that our drive forward to try and do something about affordable housing is in a mess. It's moving in the right direction. Yes, I think it's been slower than many of us liked. When I came in to take this role, we hadn't got a strong officer base to do that. That's been strengthened now with the employment of the strategic head of housing delivery and his team he's getting around him at the moment, and I think that will put us in a much better position. Yes, it's been slower than we would like. It's a shame that some of those steps hadn't been taken stronger in the past.
Okay, I move to the vote. All those in favour? And that motion is carried unanimously. Thank you. Members, I indicated at the beginning of the meeting that I'd be taking a break if the meeting went beyond 7, so we're going to adjourn for 10 minutes. Thank you. Members, can we please take our seats? Okay, item number 10. I now move to item 10, Levelling Up Fund Round 3, Torbay Technology Park. Please refer to page 105 and the Cabinet's recommendation circulated earlier today. Can Councillor Chris Lewis please put the Cabinet's motion to the Council?
Thank you very much indeed, Madam Mayor. I'm delighted to put this motion before the Council. I think it is a good news story, and first of all I'd like to thank Councillor Long for all the hard work he did when he had the portfolio, and I'm sure he will give me as much praise as he gave to Councillor Timon when he rises to speak. But well done to the team who put it forward, and of course we inherited it and took it further. And we were eventually successful with the Levelling Up Fund Round 2, and we got 20 million from government. And that 20 million, some of it will enable us to move forward with the technology park. However, before you open the technology park, you've got to buy the land. And that's what the decision is today. And this is the first stage going forward. And we're looking at land which is near the Epic Centre and near South Devon College. So trying to create a high-tech hub at the Torbay Business Park, so that Torbay, that part of Torbay, that part of Paynton, becomes our Silicon Valley. All we need now is the weather, and we'll be away. But this will be bringing high-paid jobs to the Bay, improving the economy of the Bay, and providing real opportunities for our youngsters. Epic has been a great success, but it is now full. And we need an area for companies to move on from Epic and other high-tech companies who want to move to the Bay or expand. The first stage of our high-tech, our technology centre, will be 100 new jobs. When it is all completed, the second stage will be an extra 180 jobs. So this really is a good news story for the Bay. Hopefully, stopping people moving away from the Bay that we've seen years gone by. I'd also like to thank, this is where Councillor Long and I might fall out, I'd also like to thank the former Conservative government for the 20 million, and of course thank you to our former Member of Parliament, Kevin Foster, for all his good work in getting this eventually across the line. So I put to you the recommendation under item 3 that the Director of Finance, in consultation with the Director of Pride in Place and Cabinet Member for Place Development Economic Growth, be given delegated authority to vary the capital plan upon confirmation of the final acquisition price of Torbay Tech Park, which is to be funded from Levelling Up Fund grant, be approved. It's a great news story, and the sooner we get the land, we can get on with the building and get those jobs underway. Thank you very much indeed, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Is there a seconder?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I rise to second this and reserve my right.
I now invite debate. Councillor Long.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. I noticed that Councillor Lewis did not also lay claim to Councillor By's compliments for Councillor Timon and lay claim to words of wisdom, which I'll just leave that there. As I mentioned at Cabinet last night, this side will be supporting this item, not least because we tabled the first bid for this, but for reasons best known for themselves, the then Conservative government decided not to grant it to Liberal Democrat and Independent administration at the time, but decided to wait and agree to the same bid from a Conservative administration. I'm sure they'll be able to explain their reasons for that themselves. But this is a very good proposal which will help with the Bay's economy. We do need to help attract, build on Nortel, the legacy of Nortel, and also attract those high-tech jobs to the Bay. And so we need to, proceed with this. So fully supportive. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Long. Councillor Cowell.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And absolutely we'll be supporting this. As Councillor Lewis pointed out, we were fully behind these applications for the Levelling Up funding during our time in office. The thing about these funding bids is it's extremely expensive to put these bids together. And unfortunately, a lot of these things, whether it's Town Deal, Future High Streets, Levelling Up, it's a bit of a lottery. And I just hope that the new government will actually make things much more explicit in terms of how they're going to fund regeneration projects such as this. And we're not going to have councils bidding against each other and working in competition to get the necessary funding that we've managed to secure for this bid. It is a good project. Having been an ex-Nortel employee and one of those made redundant many years ago, I know some of those small high-tech companies that have emerged as the phoenix out of the ashes that are still in the South Devon area. And they are of international, global reputation and innovative. We need to be making sure that we're promoting our high-tech sector, and by enabling this development, by buying this parcel of land, sends out the right messages to those companies that may be wishing to expand, not into massive units, but into the appropriate sized units that otherwise would have looked out elsewhere. We were extremely disappointed that we nearly had a company on the hook to go to Edgenswell, who actually moved just a few hundred yards down the road to King's Kerswell, because of the way their parent company was operating at the time. But this is a good news story. And I've got a feeling, and forgive me if my geography is wrong and my knowledge of the parliamentary boundaries is wrong, but actually both the fish and chips projects are actually in the South Devon constituency, formerly Totnes, with a different MP to the one referred to earlier. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Timon.
Thank you. I confirm, I think, to Councillor Dowell, I think that's my belief as well. They're both in the former Totnes constituency. And the reason why I'm doing that is I think I wanted to just pick up on the point that was raised by Councillor Long in terms of the fact that this got turned down in the first round of the Levelling Up partnership. And I think we also need to give credit to the former MP in that constituency, then called Totnes, because he did an awful lot of the pushing to actually make sure that we did get this come forward in the second round, the second tranche of money. I don't think it was so much to do with which party was in control in Torbay. I think it was far more to do with the fact we just didn't meet the criteria and the cut-off point in the first tranche of money, and with a little bit of tweaking of the project proposal and a lot of pressure from our MPs at the time, we managed to get through in round two. But I think it is, as everyone said, an excellent project. Members may remember that I think it was the last council meeting, if not it was the one before, we agreed a small amount of funding to bring forward the feasibility study on this project. So work on that is carrying on in parallel with the negotiations for this purchase, and hopefully we will be seeing a fully formed scheme and business case before long, which will allow construction to start as soon as that's able to be arranged.
Thank you, Councillor Timon. If there's no further debate, Councillor David Thomas, you reserved your right.
No, thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Chris Lewis, your right of reply.
Thank you very much indeed, and I'm pleased that hopefully everyone will be supportive, but certainly Councillor Long was supportive, and as I said earlier, congratulations on, as a team, we've got it through. Councillor Cowell says quite rightly, of course, as a Member of Parliament, I did actually know that our blue-eyed boy, Councillor, what's your name? Tarman. Councillor Tarman was going to mention the other Member of Parliament, so I thought I'd mention it on us, because probably 3/4 of the people who will work in the high-tech company will come on this from the Torbay side of the constituency. Am I winning? No. So, in fact, I'm sure the whole chamber will be supportive, and we look forward to buying the land, building the building, getting the jobs going. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Lewis. Now move to the vote. All those in favour? And that motion is carried unanimously. Thank you. I move to item 11, Treasury Management Outturn 23-24. Report and the Audit Committee's recommendations, please refer to page 119. Can Councillor Brooke please put the Audit Committee's motion to the Council?
Yes, thank you very much, Madam Mayor. I'm happy to put this motion before members. The last time I did this, I did a bit of an overrun because I was new at this. So hopefully this time I won't do an overrun, which you'll be relieved at. But I'm mindful that every time I speak, I want the residents to understand what we're doing. It's very easy that we know the wording, we know the jargon, but their residents might not know the jargon. When it comes to finance and treasury management, etc., that might be a difficulty. So taking the definition from our treasury management strategy, treasury management is simply the management of the council's cash flows, borrowings and investments and associated risks. So we as a council, we have a treasury management strategy, and that provides the framework and criteria for the management of the risk of our cash, our borrowings and our investments. And as the document you see before us, the council borrows and invests substantial sums of money. And thus the monitoring of this treasury management activity within the confines of the strategy is vital for the financial well-being of the council and ultimately our residents. So part of the work of the Audit Committee is to scrutinise the Treasury Management's activity, which we did when the report came to us on the 24th of July of this year. And it came to us in order that we as a committee, when we look at it, we gain assurance that the protocols have been fulfilled. So as members of the committee, we asked the relevant questions to our Section 151 officer. And this part of it is just for us to note. But I just wanted to put some salient points here. The first is compliance, which is in Section 9. All decisions we found that have been made over the year were within line with our strategy's criteria, specifically on investment and borrowing limits, credit ratings, liquidity, mature structures of borrowing and levels of investment over 1 year, which obviously that's a fundamental. We want to know that we were compliant. The second I just wanted to point out was the performance, which you'll see in Section 8. The investment income generated was actually 2.4 million greater than was originally budgeted. And also through the management of our borrowings, interest payments were 2.3 million less than the budget. So there's a huge differential there, which is great for Torbay, and it shows that we can manage our money very well. And I just wanted to put on record thanks to our Section 151 officer and the team behind that in achievements. The third point I wanted to make was the Treasury investment activities. Last year we made an agreement which we came to council and we approved it, the ability to do diversification for our long-term investments. That is actually the Treasury management activity was in part processed from that, which I'm glad to see was working well for our council. So,
The Section 1 officer, Section 1.5 officer, though, asked us to consider, as a committee, a couple of changes which are in the documentation. The first was regarding a certain thing called time limits on three investments that we could potentially look at for long-term investments. The original time limit was 3 years, and it was asked to move that to 25 years. The reason why we agreed that was just simply it enables us to build up a more diversified portfolio in long-term investments to help the council in their funding requirements over the years. So as a committee, we found that sensible, and we approved that. The second issue was regarding a potential investment with what did I call them? An RHP, registered housing provider. Now, the deal itself looked attractive, but it was just outside our criteria on its credit worthiness. And as a committee, we felt that the extra potential, it wasn't so big as
Councillor Brooks, you've got 30 seconds remaining.
Increase the risk. So I'm nearly running out of time again. So, as I said, the committee agreed to the limit changes, but disagreed with the investment change of credit rating. So I'm very happy to put forward this motion to colleagues. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Brooke. Do you have a seconder?
Yes, happy to second this and reserve my rights.
Thank you. I now invite debate. Councillor Penny?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Very little add to this wonderful discourse, because it's correct. Correct in audit terms, that is. And what I mean by that is within the strategy, it's within accounting and auditing requirements, no problem. The second recommendation from the audit committee, it was just pure practical. Times change, sums change. We adapt. I keep being told that the audit committee is non-political. Thank you for that. I've only spent 45 years as an auditor. I didn't know that before. Now I do. The politics, and there is politics, doesn't actually come within the audit scope itself. It's on the periphery. I could talk about strategy, and we could talk about differences in strategy, but that is not an audit committee requirement. Hence, I have to agree with our chairman. The end. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. If there's no further debate, Councillor Tyman, you reserved your right.
No, happy to pass back to my colleague behind me.
Councillor Brooke.
And I further, well, I understand what you're saying, Councillor, but the point is the audit committee is for assurance and it's not for the actual area that you were talking about.
I now move to the vote. All those in favour? And that motion is carried unanimously. I move to item 12, establishment of the Cabinet Working Parties and Council Local Plan Working Party. Please refer to page 143. Can Councillor David Thomas please put the Cabinet's motion to the Council?
Thank you very much indeed. This one should be quite straightforward, Madam Mayor. Effectively, we have a need to refresh the local plan, and we know the government's direction of travel there, and we know the numbers that we're needing to supply across Torbay at 957 homes per annum, based across what our previous target was, which was around 500. So what we are looking to do is set up a local plan working party to work through that particular document and other documents in that realm. Membership is in the report there, demonstrating political balance, and it's clearly should be sitting as a council function, as the local plan would be needed to be approved by the council. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you have a seconder?
Right, second and reserve my right, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
I now invite debate. Councillor Long.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. And just as a very quick aside, in the gents, Councillor Fox reminded me this evening that tonight, amongst other things, he reminded me that tonight is my first formal meeting as being the new leader of the opposition. So I know that members opposite didn't want me as mayor, but now they've got me as in a more political role. So I fear you may be regretting your decision a bit further down the line. But that's an aside. This item actually is a very sad moment for Torbay Council. It is a new nadir just when people thought things couldn't get any worse. This administration, at the now infamous annual meeting, which is probably the most watched council meeting of ours on YouTube, chose to scrap a number of, thank you for your contribution, chose to scrap a number of working parties that were working very well. Indeed, the chair of the former Transport Working Party has been at pains to tell us how well that working party was being run, and how well it was working. Since then, several months of dither and delay have passed since that time, and now we have the creation of replacement working parties. The only real difference is that they now have the word cabinet in front of them.
Long, can we keep it relevant to the local plan working party, please?
I feel it is relevant. It's giving content. It comes out of the cabinet meeting that discussed this.
We're not talking about the other working parties? The old ones.
Well, it's hard to talk about the new ones without referencing the old ones, since they are almost exactly the same. I was going to come on to that.
Perfect, just reminding you.
Thank you. And just on that very point, the report that was at Cabinet that cited the reasons for creating these new ones, cited reasons for creating them, could easily have been cut and pasted into reasons for citing the creation of the new ones. The Lib Dem group feel this is nothing more than a power grab by a minority administration desperate to cling on to power. On behalf of the Lib Dem group, I have asked in both private and public, so it is in public record, for this item to be postponed until after the mediation process the council is going through has completed. The existing working parties can continue their work during that time. Sadly, discussion on this request has been refused. This side of the chamber could have been confrontational and requested a call-in of the cabinet decision, but we chose not to inflame the situation and hoped diplomacy would succeed instead. Clearly, to anyone watching, and it wouldn't surprise me if the facilitator is watching, will now see that diplomacy and reasonableness has now been thrown back in our faces. Clearly, the message the Conservatives are sending us is that they don't want facilitation to work. This approach does not just reflect internal council meetings, it affects residents too, and I want to cite as an example something that's happening this very evening. So the outcome of all this for our residents is that Brixham councillors feel that they have to be here tonight rather than at an important meeting in Brixham with South West Water.
Long, I'm sorry, this is not relevant to what we're actually debating. So can you please stick to what we're debating, which is the Council Local Plan Working Party?
You'll be pleased to hear I'm on my last sentence, so we'll be there. But Brixham councillors need not worry, as Brixham's new MP will be there. In light of the above, the Lib Dem group will not be able to support this motion in light of the reasons I have just outlined. Thank you.
Councillor Cowell.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Clearly this is about the establishment of a council working party, because we've now introduced this differential between cabinet working parties and council working parties, even though the former always used to work very successfully for decades. But in terms of the local plan working party, obviously the terms of reference relate to the membership of that, but I would be extremely keen and anxious to ensure that we engage fully with our neighbourhood forums where they exist, because they actually have a very positive message to say in terms of the development of their own neighbourhood plans, and Torquay's is now going through the sort of submission stages. It's now with the council. But obviously the local plan and the neighbourhood plan are very much interrelated, so I would urge that we include the expertise that we have within the Bay from those neighbourhood plans. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Cowell. Councillor Timon.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As Cabinet Member for Housing, I would be very reluctant to see any form of delay in getting on with the work we need to produce the new local plan. You may shake your head, but I think the message that I've received from government, from various officials, is this has to be done. The sooner we can get on with the process, the better. We have consultation to respond to very imminently, and you know, dither and delay just doesn't serve the council and its residents any good at all. So, you know, I listen to and I understand some of the concerns, but really delay is not something this council can afford to happen. We need to move on. If, as a result of facilitation, we decide that things can be changed, they can still be changed. But let us not put aside progress when we desperately need, and our residents desperately need, progress.
Thank you, Councillor Timon. If there's no further debates, Councillor Chris Lewis, you reserved your rights.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We were going so nicely. We never had in recent years, we never had a local plan working party. This is completely new, coming to the council. You talk about us playing politics. This is pure politics, and we shouldn't be playing politics. The new government are saying to Torbay, we're going to give you a figure of nearly 1,000 houses to build. And you want to delay this until November? They've got it out for consultation. We want to...
Explanation, please, Madam Mayor.
This is relevant.
Councillor Lewis, if you'd like to finish, Councillor Long, I'll come to you after, okay?
Fine. Thank you very much. I heard from the people opposite it's not relevant. This is really relevant because we want members' input. That's why at a training meeting we said let's get on with it, and I think a number of people who were there, cross-party, were in favour of that, so that we can have a debate round the table with senior officers how we're going to respond to government to try and reduce that number of 1,000 homes. The people in Torbay will not be pleased if we miss that consultation deadline from the government and we remain with nearly 1,000 homes. That is the risk of not setting up this local plan working party now. So let's stop playing politics. Let's support it tonight so that we can discuss the numbers round the table. We can discuss the MPPF and get on with it. It's not about politics. It's about getting on with it, responding to consultation. If you want us to be the only ones responding to consultation, so be it. I don't. I want everyone across the floor to be able to have that debate. So I hope that everyone will support it, because the number of houses, Torbay cannot afford to build nearly 1,000 homes a year, and we've got to tell the government. Thank you.
Councillor Long, if you'd like to set out your point of personal explanation, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And I think Councillor Lewis needs to listen more carefully. I did not say that we were going to be voting against this tonight. So there is no indication that we were going to delay anything. And in fact, just to develop that particular point, this working party could have been set up without the other working parties being scrapped. That was the point I was trying to make.
Thank you, Councillor Long.
Thank you.
Councillor Thomas, your right of reply.
Thank you very much indeed. And you know, it's very helpful to make notes of the meetings, of what people say as they say it, because that gives me an opportunity to look back to see what was actually said. Councillor Long, you actually say we're not supporting this motion. So I think that would be fair for Councillor Lewis to assume that means that you're not going to be voting for it. So, you know, against the comments that you just made a moment ago, we look forward to your support, because it is, exactly as Councillor Lewis said, really, really important that the council...
Another personal explanation, please, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Thomas, please finish, and then I'll come to you, Councillor Long.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It is really, really important that the council get this local plan working party in place. We need to get the local plan. We need to get our consultation in place. This is all about good governance. It's one of the things that when we had the LGA down here talking about good governance, we're trying our absolute best here. All we kept hearing all the time tonight is, oh, from a minority administration. Well, Councillor Long, if this was a minority administration, we actually wouldn't be able to get any of the things through the council without some of the support from the opposition, because that's actually what a minority administration actually means. If you want to look it up in the dictionary, I accept that, no problem. But I can see members shaking their heads opposite, but it really is about getting on with it. I'm delighted that you've confirmed that you will now support this, because at least that gives us confidence that we can actually get this approved unanimously this evening. Thank you very much indeed.
Councillor Long? Councillor Law, can you keep your voice down, please?
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. And next, Councillor Thomas will be accusing me of wanting to eat cats and dogs. So two things. Minority, you are in a minority administration because you don't have a majority. And secondly, you've been a councillor long enough, Councillor Thomas, to know that you cannot support something, and that doesn't mean you're going to vote against it. You know, it's quite simple. Thank you.
Okay, I now move to the vote. All those in favour? And those against? Any abstentions? And the motion's carried. Thank you. I move to item 13, Constitution Amendments, Local Protocol on Relations between Overview and Scrutiny and Cabinet. Please refer to page 157. Can Councillor Jackie Thomas please put her motion to the Council?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The proposals in this report bring forward a new local protocol on relations between overview and scrutiny and the Cabinet, which was requested following a review of overview and scrutiny in 2023 and Local Government Association, the LGA, peer review in 2024, as set out in Appendix 1. The protocol follows best practice and national guidance to ensure that the differing roles of the two bodies are clear, and through this, that expectations of the relationship are likewise clear and unambiguous. I propose that Council approves the new local protocol on relations between overview and scrutiny and the Cabinet set out in Appendix 1 to the submitted report for inclusions within the Council's constitution. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Jackie Thomas. Have you got a seconder?
Madam Mayor, I'm happy to second and I reserve my right.
Thank you. I now invite debate.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor, fellow councillors, we come to item lucky 13 for some, and I hope it is for me. I'll explain why. I bring this amendment to your attention. Yes, it was late in delivery, but I make this amendment to your attention and I seek your kind support simply from the perspective of reinforcing good governance. Nothing more, nothing less. We have heard from item 9, my background, auditor, audit committee, non-political. I recognise I'm operating in a political environment. And you may well be interpreting this politically. I'm not. The amendment takes existing constitutional arrangements, standing orders of financial regulations, and melds rather with the April 2024 update of the overview and scrutiny statutory guidance for councils, combined authorities and combined county authorities issued by the Department for Levelling Up, Housing and Communities, which is contained in our appendix, I think on page 168 of our agenda papers, in item 1.1. So good governance. In Guiding Principles, paragraph 2.1, page 168, quite clearly, it's about us, people, councillors, etc. And that's what 2.1 covers perfectly adequately. It's interesting, though, in the way it's written. It's written, I think, in a more modern way than perhaps has been our custom, and it is certainly up front. It reflects current and foreseeable future conditions. There is one other important factor that contributes to a constructive meeting as well as people. That is the quality of information and data upon which these good people are debating on. And information obviously relevant, timely, accurate, complete. There is reference in paragraph 2.3 on page 169 of our agenda and in appendix 1 of that information, about information and data. Now, I believe genuinely we can reinforce good governance in this paragraph by substituting the amendment before you. The changes stem directly from the statutory guidelines. Now, I'm not a lawyer, but to me, statutory guidance means unless there is a very, very, very good reason, we apply the guidance. The wording specifically that I'm particularly interested in, and you will probably be more concerned about, comes towards the end. 1, 2, 3, 4 lines up. It's included in the access to information rules in the Constitution set out at Standing Order E 20.4, which is not limited for reasons of party, political or reputational expediency. I repeat, I'm not being political. I am simply talking about good governance and inclusion into the paper accordingly. Necessary, it's included the Department of Levelling Up, Housing and Communities that wrote this document. Yes?
So we can hear you.
Oh, you can. Oh, sorry. Normally I get told I mutter. My apologies. I'll calm down then.
You've got 30 seconds remaining.
Oh, whoops. Okay, moving on. They considered it important enough, and the wording is taken from their paragraph 43 contained in the statutory guide. It's not my wording, it's the department's wording. It's not included in our current, specifically in our current constitution. It does directly follow the updated statutory guidance.
Thank you, Councillor Penny. Your time's up.
Sole interest to reinforce good governance. Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. Commend it to you, good councillors.
Do you have a seconder, Councillor Penny? Councillor Long?
Yes, please. I rise to second and reserve my right. Thank you.
Okay. Is there any debate on the amendment? Councillor David Thomas?
Thank you very much. I will try to reply to the best of my ability. So, when I read this for the first time, I thought it was a strengthening of what we were trying to do. And this came forward about 3 months ago with the group leaders, went back to our groups, and there was nothing that came forward. This has come forward just this evening, and so I need to read the words carefully. And so in reading, which is not limited for reasons of party political expediency, for me, that tells me that that flies in the face, basically, of what we're trying to do here with the constitutional amendment, whereas the protocol basically says we don't want overview and scrutiny to be political. We want it to be a case of working together with Cabinet and overview and scrutiny. We want it to do the very best it can do for our residents. And that, for me, causes me real concerns in the way that that is written. I genuinely was hoping that when Councillor Penny stood up this evening, he would be able to explain what that words meant and to put my mind at ease and to provide some comfort. But to be honest, the way it's been explained, and I apologise if it's me not understanding what you've said, Councillor, but I read this as basically absolutely just trying to drive a coach and horses through the protocol that's been set up. If that is not your intention, it would have been great to talk about this and work this up in advance of this evening. After all, it has been sat around before it came to council for 3 months. And the document has actually been pulled together using statutory guidance. It has been come together through the work that we've done with the LGA, and it's also come through with support from, I'm going to get this wrong, I know the acronym CIFCA, is it? Basically, somebody from Overview and Scrutiny help me out. National Scrutiny, basically. So they've also kind of SIFCA or whatever. So I apologise if I've got that wrong. So because I don't fully understand what it's saying here, and because the way I read it, it says basically for reasons of party political expediency. That is exactly opposite to what we're trying to do in the report. And for me, I think that that is just undermines the whole ambience of what we're trying to do. And that for me causes concerns, and that for me basically tries to undo everything that this document is trying to say. Thank you.
Councillor Steve Darling.
Now, colleagues, thank you, Madam Mayor, for letting me in. Colleagues, Nigel is a very modest man, and if he won't blow his own trumpet, I will. And Councillor Penny, in his previous life, while he alluded that he's gone round and supported councils, he has gone round to small countries, whether this be in the Balkans or the Middle East, and assist them on what good governance looks like. So I struggle to know of anyone, whether it is this side of the chamber or the other, who has that quality and integrity around what good governance looks like. So when Nigel talks, we should all listen, whether you understand it or not. That's your challenge, Mr. Leader. But it's clear to me that it's about openness and transparency and being accountable as the administration. And the thing that I also reflect on, because it was alluded to earlier on, in respect of the peer review from the Local Government Association, one of the feedbacks from a colleague who was a leader of a Metropolitan Borough Council said that the leadership of a local authority should pay great heed to those who are backbenchers, and the leadership should make sure that those backbenchers are well cared for and supported in their roles. Overview and scrutiny is a forum for backbenchers, and therefore one should put power to their elbow. That is what this amendment is about, rather than trying to hide things from the public. Please back this amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Darling. Councillor Billings.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Penny. I think you could have helped me a little bit more understand where this is coming from. Where I think this is intended to come from is going to come from my assessment of the text I've got in front of me. And short-circuiting what it says, in addition to their rights as councillors, members of Overview and Scrutiny shall have access to information which is not limited for reasons of party, political or reputational expediency. Now, that presupposes that that limitation's already there. And whilst it appears laudable to provide that clarification in this point, there's lots of points in the Constitution where we talk about access to information, and if we don't provide equivalent carve-outs for those, I would suggest you could presuppose those limits. That's the sort of thing I would appreciate clarification on from officers, and therefore I don't feel now in this forum this is the best way to take this forward. If I've understood the intention correctly, i.e. to ensure Overview and Scrutiny have access to information, that is laudable. If I've misunderstood it, I'm clearly in no better position than if I'd not tried to study the text with the absence of any explanation. And I would suggest that if that's the intention, we should come back and revisit this on another occasion, simply to avoid the unintended consequences of providing that clarity in this part of the Constitution. The Constitution is an extremely long document, and I wouldn't want to deal with this bit at the exclusion of all of the others. And I think if that's the intention, then we should come back on another occasion with officers' assistance and deal with it then. I think that's the way to deal with it. That's my... I don't disagree with the intention, it's the way we're seeking to deal with it. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Timon.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I was actually going to say something very similar to my colleague, Councillor Billings. But I'd like to put it in just a slightly different context. I've listened to what's been said by Councillor Penny. I've listened to what's been said by Councillor Thomas. I listened to what's been said by Councillor Darling. I've listened to what's been said on my right by Councillor Billings. And I'm sorry, I don't understand the implications of this. And I think it's absolutely wrong that members should be asked to vote on something if they don't understand the implications. Therefore, I would wish to have an explanation from our monitoring officer as to what this means. I think that would be best handled at a later date, as suggested on my right. There is no reason why we cannot amend the Constitution again if there is good reason to do so on the basis of the wording that's been put before us. But fundamentally, it is wrong to expect councillors to take decisions on matters they don't understand. I'm certainly in that position. I am sure a number of my colleagues behind me, and maybe even some opposite me, are in the same position. So please, I would ask actually that you withdraw this on the understanding that we will ask our monitoring officer to look at this, to explain the implications to us, and to bring it forward as a change to the Constitution if that is felt to be the right thing to do at the next council meeting.
Thank you, Councillor Timon. Councillor Bye.
Madam Mayor, once again, words of wisdom from my colleague, Councillor Timon. In simple terms, if I don't understand something, I'm not going to vote for it. I'm not going to vote for this amendment. With the greatest respect to Councillor Penny, I didn't get it. I really didn't get it. I think that we've had a marvellous council meeting this evening, and I don't believe the council has reached a new nadir. I think things are going forward, but I think it would be a bad move to vote on something we just don't get. Thank you.
Councillor Chris Lewis.
Yeah, thank you very much. I mean, I don't understand it either. Maybe it's late in the day, but I really don't understand it. And that's why I think we need the input from the overview and scrutiny clerk and from the monitoring officer to do it. What I would hope is that we get full backing, because it's been through the leadership group, it's been elsewhere, for the motion before us today. And then I think as a group, as Cabinet, we will engage probably through the leadership group with the people concerned to make sure that, you know, what is involved in it, because I'm sure there are members on all sides that don't, you know, if I sat down with someone and said, can you explain it to me, I think they may have difficulties, or maybe it's only me, but I certainly have difficulties. I'd like you to support the motion. We give our commitment that we will bring it to the leadership group to discuss it further. If it is in agreement, we'll then bring it back to this chamber. Thank you.
Councillor Long, are you reserved? Oh, Councillor Cowell, sorry, I didn't see you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think sometimes these constitutional amendments can be a little bit confusing, because not everybody in this room sat down and read every single page of our entire constitution, with the exception, of course, of the monitoring officer and the chief executive and probably the head of governance. But I can understand the reluctance of members to vote on something that they don't understand. I mean, we talk about good governance, and I think what Councillor Penny is proposing will strengthen the protocol. And I am quite happy to support the principle of it. But I think if there is a body of members that aren't clear, it may be wise to defer it so that it can come back as a future amendment at the next council meeting, which is, I think, in December. And then we can go through the council leadership group, make sure that all members are fully versed and understanding of the intent behind it, because it's not appropriate, even at this meeting, to adjourn the meeting for the monitoring officer to brief us, because I think there could be further questions. So I think on this occasion, I would sympathise with some of the comments about a deferral so that we can bring it back to the December meeting as an amendment to the Constitution. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Cowell. If there's no further debate, Councillor Long, you reserved your rights.
Just very quickly, and just to clarify, at the leaders' meeting earlier in the week, I did advise that the group wanted to talk about this a bit more, and that we were meeting to discuss it, which we did, so hence the amendment today. Just to back up what Councillor Darling said, he often says things that I often think as well, is that Councillor Penny has literally advised governments on their governance, and I think if there is anyone in this room who is less party political, it is Councillor Penny, and I would personally trust him on things I didn't understand more than anyone in this room. But as I understand it, what this motion is saying, and it's based on guidance, is that overview and scrutiny should not be asked to do anything without it being based on all the relevant information, without it, unless there's very good reason for that information not to be shared. And I think that's just saying that information shouldn't be shared with ONS just because it's political. So I think that's where it lies. However, and just to say that as part of the putting the amendment together, it was cast under the eyes of the monitoring officer as well as part of the process, so it's not like the monitoring officer has been missed out. However, I would be happy for this to come back again if Councillor Penny is happy to a future meeting, but I would like the motion to reflect that so it does come back in December, if that makes sense.
Perfect. Councillor Penny, what are you minded to... Are you agreeing with Councillor Long?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I am very disappointed that people do not understand, because I understand it completely. That's the trouble. I understand it completely. It's so obvious to me, after 45 years, that it's simply an update put by this department to reflect the current developing situation. We are living, and I'm not talking about Torbay specifically, generally, we are living in more extreme times. The idea of the British compromise is on the wane. And I'm not talking Torbay.
Sorry, Councillor Penny, generally. I asked you if you were minded to agree with Councillor Long.
All right, okay, quite right. I'm obviously copying my chair over there. The answer is yes, I'm very happy because I believe it's the correct thing to do. People don't understand it. Of course they must understand it. I'm very happy to deal with it on by the 5th of December at this next council meeting. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Perfect. Thank you, Councillor Penny. The leader of the Liberal Democrats has asked for a 5-minute adjournment, so we're going to adjourn for 5 minutes, but strictly 5 minutes.
Yes.
Can we all be seated, please? Thank you. Thank you. So, Councillor Penny, have you decided what you're going to do?
The pub's just down the road, and I won't jangle. Following discussions with my leader, with the leader of the Conservatives, I withdraw this amendment and look forward to seeing it again reappearing on December the 5th council meeting, because it is worth fighting for, believe me. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Penny. Councillor Long, do you agree?
The local democracy reporter was saying that the meeting wasn't exciting enough this evening, so I'm going to disagree. No. I'm going to agree, because I understand that it will then go for further discussions at the council leadership group to include Councillor Penny and the monitoring officer, etc. And then we'll decide from there where to take it next. So on that understanding, we're happy to withdraw. Thank you.
Perfect. So with that withdrawn, I understand Councillor Jackie Thomas wants to incorporate some words within her motion.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I believe our Chief Executive, Anne-Marie Bond, has some words that may cover that. Thank you.
Of course, Councillor Thomas, happy to assist. So during the adjournment and through the discussions, what I understand, and Madam Mayor, will need Councillor Jackie Thomas ultimately, and then Councillor Spigania to confirm their agreement to this. But the motion before Council now tonight is that Council approves the new local protocol on relations between overview and scrutiny in the Cabinet, as set out in Appendix 1 to the submitted report for inclusion within the Council's constitution, subject to further work cross-party being undertaken on the local protocol and reported to Council as required.
Perfect. Councillor Jackie Thomas, do you agree?
Yes, thank you, and thank you, Anne-Marie. That is absolutely great, and yes, I fully support that. Thank you.
Councillor Spigania, do you agree?
I agree, Madam Mayor.
And is there any further debate on this motion? Councillor Thomas, do you want the right to reply?
No, I'm very happy to go to the vote. Thank you.
Fab. All those in favour? And that motion is carried unanimously. Thank you. One more, I'm afraid. Item number 14. I move to item number 14, urgent decisions taken by the Chief Executive. Please refer to page 173. This report is for noting and there's no vote necessary. Thank you for your attendance today, members, and I'll now close the meeting.
Stevens.